Kansas City Sports Update Studios. Welcome to Kingdom Radio, where we talk about all things Kansas City Chiefs. Brought to you by Arrowhead Update. Join Chris and Richard on iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Spreaker, Player FM, CastBox, and all third-party applications. Check us out on Facebook platforms such as Kansas City Sports Update and Arrowhead Update. And if you cannot find us there, Google or search Kingdom Radio and Kansas City Chiefs, and you will find us. Welcome to the Kingdom. Kingdom.
How are we doing, Chiefs Kingdom? It is Wednesday, October 23rd. It's hump day. We've got a little work week ahead of us here, and we're going to hop into this game against the Green Bay Packers here on Sunday night and hopefully come out with a victory. But we'll get into all that here a little later. First of all, I'd like to introduce to you our co-host and senior NFL analyst, Chris Chavez. Happy to have you on the show again tonight, Chris. How are you doing?
As always, it's fantastic to be here.
Perfect. Well, check it out, Kansas City. First, I want to start off with this. The Kingdom Radio webpage is up and running. We could not be more excited here at Kingdom Radio. We have a lot to offer on that webpage. Go check it out. Let us know what you think. Leave a review. Subscribe so you can get email notifications about our upcoming events, podcasts, our blogs. There's a lot of content on there. Go check it out, Kansas City. Chris, tell Kansas City a little bit of what you thought of the webpage as it just went up last night.
Checking it out, I really enjoyed how accessible it is and easy to find the podcast right there on the homepage. Maneuvering through it, everything is so simple. You got the blogs, all the information is just right there. It's fantastic. It's easy, and it's completely enjoyable. I even liked the look, the background of it. It really had a very different feel to it than most other pages that you see, where everything is just so like in your face and there's like too much going on. It looks fantastic.
Good deal, and that's what we like to hear. We take a lot of pride in everything we do here at Kingdom Radio, and there's a lot of stuff going on the back end of things that Chiefs Kingdom doesn't get to see. So it's really nice just to hear, our Kingdom Radio family enjoying the webpage. So now it's your turn, Chiefs Kingdom. Go check us out, kckingdomradio.com. We'd love to have you all, tune in on our webpage. All right, we're going to take off on the Chiefs here tonight. And obviously, look, I want to start with Patrick Mahomes. That's kind of the big thing going on. There's a lot of news around him today. Andy Reid will not rule out the possibility of Patrick Mahomes returning to play against the Packers here Sunday evening. He was also seen, doing pool resistance rehab this week. I think that, obviously his knee isn't as bad as we thought it was going to be, and the pool resistance shows us that, there's no ligament damage or anything like that, and he's really trying to get back on the field as fast as possible. There's also clips of him throwing on the sideline and at practice and participating in, some of the more, the non-physical aspects of practice. Chris, go ahead and take off a little bit here on Patrick Mahomes and, the implications of the possibility of him starting Sunday night. What is your take? Because this is an odd scenario, but it's big for the NFL. It's bigger than the Chiefs. The NFL really wants to see that matchup, between Patrick Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers. So take off on that, Chris. What do you think?
I think that jeopardizing Patrick Mahomes' future, whether it be this season and the rest of his career, is not worth fulfilling the NFL's desire to have their key matchup of the Packers versus Chiefs, Aaron Rodgers versus Mahomes, the passing of the torch, if you will. It's not worth jeopardizing all of that for one game. And if Andy Reid is truly contemplating allowing Patrick Mahomes to start, then and only then would I truly question Andy Reid's leadership ability as our head coach. because if he's willing to the other potential wins that we could have, the Super Bowl that we should be vying for, just to beat the Packers, it's not worth it. I feel that, and I'm going to kind of jump around here a little bit. I feel that Matt Moore's ability to step in and keep us competitive in this game is being undervalued, because not only is Matt Moore a capable NFL quarterback, a backup quarterback who's going to come in and be the starter, should be the starter, he also has all of the same weapons around that Patrick Mahomes has had. And we're going to be getting players back. It's just not worth it, and it's not conceivable in my mind to bring him back. And on top of that we're not just talking about a bad knee, although that's the most recent injury. He also has a bad ankle.
Right.
And when you've got two injuries on, and I'm presuming here one leg, maybe it's two injuries on both legs, I don't know. Why risk it? Sit him, let him get healthy, or healthier at least. And okay, let him out for this weekend, reevaluate him next week, and if he's really back to his old self as best as possible, okay, cool. We'll come in, play against Minnesota. But even then, I don't want to have him in against Minnesota.
I think it's more of a scary scenario for me when I think of Patrick Mahomes being on the practice field today, doing anything besides resting his body. It's at some point you have to set a superstar down and say, look, I know you have the mentality to go out there. It doesn't matter if you have a broken back, you'll be out there on the field. But at some point you have to draw the line for a young man who has an entire career ahead of him, and it's not worth the risk of putting him in, like you said, for one game. I don't want to beat the Packers that bad. Do we want to come out with a win? Yes. And that's why Matt Moore has taken the majority of the snaps in practice this week. And Chris, I think you're absolutely right about us overlooking Matt Moore. I mean, we're way undervaluing Matt Moore because we don't know what to expect. But like you said, you put all those weapons around him. With Andy Reid, he's had 9 weeks with him, 8 weeks. And look, we might see a Matt Moore that can, at least keep us competitive through this 3-game stretch that we really should be without Mahomes. And at the same time, this, might be a coaching strategy, to kind of keep Green Bay on their heels, because they do have a dynamic defense that has gotten formidably better, from the previous few seasons. So let's look at the QB depth a little bit here, because this is kind of, and I don't want to say an issue, but at the same time, we don't know what we have, as far as our depth at quarterback. I mean, pretty much all of these guys, have no history with the Chiefs. So please fill us in a little bit, Chris. What are we doing on the depth chart here? Because it's weird that Travis Kelce might show up on the quarterback depth chart.
Yeah, so there's a lot of scheming and names getting thrown around as to who's going to be our third quarterback, blah, 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 backup quarterback. First and foremost, we made a roster move. We let DeAnthony Thomas go. We released him. We brought up Kyle Shermer from the practice squad, who ended up winning the third quarterback spot in the preseason, and he got relegated to the practice squad. And so we have our, assuming that Patrick Mahomes is out, we have our starter in Matt Moore. We have Kyle Shermer at the 2, and again, presumably Patrick Mahomes is out, so he's not going to be on the roster. A lot of people are mentioning Travis Kelce as our emergency quarterback. That's ludicrous, and I'll get to why here in a minute. But Blake Bell, the backup tight end, should be the number 3 emergency quarterback on the roster.
Right.
Because he was a quarterback most recently back in college, but for Oklahoma.
Right.
Travis Kelce is the key to our offense and should only be used at quarterback if Blake Bell were to go down in an emergency situation. Our offense performs better when Travis Kelce is on the field and performing well.
Right. Which takes rhythm and timing.
Yes, absolutely. And we're looking at just this season, we've struggled in games where as an entire offense when Travis Kelce was having bad games.
Yes.
And that's and without Cheetah on the field.
And that's very true.
And when Travis Kelce is doing well, the entire offense is doing well. And so why would you take that key component out of your offense and put it at quarterback in an emergency situation when you have somebody else, Blake Bell, on your roster who could step in and fill in presumably just as good?
Yes, and that's right now as a hypothetical, and I really want to leave it at that. I would hate for us to have to go any deeper in depth with our quarterback lineup. It's already thin, and this leads back to Patrick Mahomes, not being on the field Sunday. Like if we're hurting that bad at depth, and we're talking about Travis Kelce, be included in the depth as emergency quarterback, I mean, that should tell Chiefs Kingdom the impact of how bad we need Patrick Mahomes 100% again. And I mean, I'm not sold on Matt Moore. I'm not sold on Kyle Shermer. We got Chad Henne back. He was in practice today, was he?
He was at practice, but he's not on the active roster yet. He should be activated sometime in the next 3 weeks. It just kind of depends on how things go with the Chiefs and what they're looking to do. I personally would rather they wait until after the Tennessee game, so take all 3 weeks and then make a roster move, bring him up, send Kyle Shermer back to the practice squad, and then we hit the bye week. And then at that point, maybe we have to make another quarterback move, because we went into the season with carrying only 2 quarterbacks on the active roster. And if they want to continue doing that, we're going to have to let somebody go, which will probably end up being either Henne or Matt Moore, depending on how Moore performs during this stretch.
And we're just going to assume that Moore will be the starting quarterback, until Mahomes is penciled in and we know that he's absolutely ready to go. Moore's the guy, and that's who we really need to focus on moving forward, outside of, our superstar, back on the practice field. Still blows my mind to say that.
Yeah, and honestly, I can't believe that they would risk potential injury at this point, re-injuring that knee. Now, granted, it was a contact play, and there was no contact that Mahomes took participation in, but that tells me that he's not ready to get on the field and to take a serious hit. Because these defenses, they're not going to be letting up when they're going to tackle him when they accidentally get blocked into his lower leg. They're going to be going after him and hitting him hard. And I do not want to risk him potentially ending up getting a worse injury to that kneecap. And we got extremely lucky with him not having to miss extended time. If he ends up getting re-injured and having to miss extended time, that could be a year until he comes back. And so we potentially couldn't get him back until the beginning of next season, if not the middle of next season. do we really want to jeopardize potentially 2 Super Bowls to beat the Packers?
No, and that's just, it seems like a horrible scenario, and the Chiefs aren't a right now type. I mean, they are. This is the season, and we've been saying it, but we know what our future is, and if Patrick Mahomes plays this Sunday night, like, it doesn't even fit into what is Chiefs Kingdom, what the franchise is. Like, this doesn't seem like a franchise move. We don't seem like we do something as reckless as this.
Yeah, it's really blowing my mind that we would do this with the franchise quarterback. And Andy Reid has had experience with franchise quarterbacks in the past, so I'm not necessarily putting this on him. But we're acting and we're treating this as if we've never had a franchise quarterback before, which, let's be real, we haven't. But and not that we necessarily treat them with like gloves and whatnot, to where like you can't touch them. But we have to be extremely careful with this guy, because we don't want to end up breaking him down to, and I think you mentioned this on the last show, like an RG3. Like an Andrew Luck.
Yes.
We need to keep him healthy for the long term.
Yes.
Because, and again, I hate making this comparison, but look at Brady in New England. He's only missed significant time once, thanks to Bone Crusher. But
yeah.
he's only missed significant time once. And why is that? Because they take care of their quarterback.
Yes, and we need to have that same projection and the same sense of urgency when it comes to his health. This is bigger than just football. I mean, this is about a kid who is extremely young, who has a lot of life to live as well. He cannot keep putting his body in jeopardy like this. Yes, we want you on the field, Patrick Mahomes, but we want you healthy before you come back. Your future depends on your health. And right now, in my mind, is questionable. No matter, he's a winner. He is one of those guys. If you will let him go out there on crutches, the man will. Andy Reid's got to take control of this scenario.
You just brought up another key point that I wanted to touch on, is that he's young. And I think, as any of the listeners will remember, is that when you're young, you think you're invincible.
Yes.
And you constantly put yourself in situations that, looking back 10, 15, 20, 30 years later, you say, you know what? While that was a fun time, I probably shouldn't have done that.
Right. And me, I'm a perfect example of that. I've had reconstructive knee surgery. I tore my ACL, my meniscus. I have bad shoulders. I can't even really throw a ball anymore due to injuries playing ball. And it's one of those things, like, I never listened to my parents, when they were saying, take care of your body, take care of your body. And Mahomes, take care of your body. We need you for the long run. And you have to understand that.
Yeah. And if he goes out there and is playing, I'm hoping that we have every possible starting offensive lineman in there to protect him. I do not want Cam Irving at left tackle if we have a hurt Mahomes in there.
No, not at all.
I don't want Cam Irving at left guard. Put in Wisniewski.
Yes.
I don't know why he wasn't seeing more of the field. He should have.
Yes, we need to, I know that he's got to work his way into the system, obviously a very complex system, but for an offensive lineman, it cannot be that in-depth. And, with that being said, we're going to, let's talk about Eric Fisher a little bit. He returned to practice today, limited in practice, but I'm excited to have that man back. And I will say that Chiefs Kingdom, now you know how much value Eric Fisher holds to the Kansas City Chiefs and why we went and gave up a first-round pick for him, 4 or 5 seasons back. So, Eric Fisher, we're happy to have you back.
Yeah, and I think that we see the value that he brings, but then also the lack of value that Cam Irving has. I think Cam Irving gets let go this offseason.
Yeah, I think it's time that Kansas City pulls the plug with him. It's with some of these players, we feel like they're a work in progress, but at the same time, we need progress now, and we need production right now, and we're not really getting that out of Cam Irving. And so, with all this being said, the Patrick Mahomes talk, we really need you to rest that knee, that ankle, all your aches and pains. Just sit it out, Mahomes. Don't do too much, because we need you in the long run. We're going to say it over and over and over and over again. We can't say it enough here in Chiefs Kingdom, because I'm, like all of you, a little bit nervous about this scenario. So we're going to go into halftime here on the show.
Kansas City, it is halftime. Thank you for tuning in to Kingdom Radio. We will return momentarily.
This is Around the NFL, brought to you by Pizza Shop Plat City. Go grab yourself a butcher block. Best meat lovers in Kansas City. Pizza Shop Plat City, proud sponsor of Kingdom Radio. Pizza Shop Plat City.
All right, Kansas City, this is Around the NFL, brought to you by Plat City Pizza Shop. Hey, what'd you think of the halftime backed up with the Around the NFL, those two audios in a row? That's how we're rolling tonight at Kingdom Radio. So anyway, look, we're going to get into the NFL trades, because this trade deadline's coming up next Tuesday at 4:30 Eastern time. That is the cutoff, and there's a lot to talk about here. And we'll start with the Lions, because if we were looking for no, never mind. That's a safety. Excuse me. We don't need any safeties. Sorry, I thought he was a cornerback. I was reading my notes and read it wrong. But the Lions deal starting safety Quadre Diggs to the Seahawks for a 2020 fifth-round pick. And here's some that will hit home here in Chiefs Kingdom. The Raiders ship Jerrion Conley to the Texans for a third-round pick. I'm not exactly sure, his production. Do you know anything about, Jerrion Conley?
Former first-round pick out of Ohio State, very highly touted coming out of college. He hasn't quite turned the corner on the NFL game just yet. And for whatever reason, Gruden felt that they needed to pull the plug on him. I think that was probably more of a Mike Mayock move than a Gruden move, because Gruden was there last year and drafted him. Mayock wasn't. Mayock probably wasn't sold on him and had no problem getting rid of him.
And that makes a lot of sense. So, that could possibly, I don't know how big of a deal it is. Former first-round pick. I don't know if he was not utilized right in Oakland. What's going on? Like you said, he maybe hasn't turned that corner. We'll see what happens there in the Texans, because totally different system, different mindset. We'll see if he can take off. Not that we want him to. So the Broncos got in the action with trades, but I'm nice with what they did. Or I'm happy with what they did. Excuse me. They shipped Emmanuel Sanders to the 49ers for a third and fourth round pick, I believe in 2020. So what's the significance for that? I mean, does this bring the Broncos down even more as an offensive squad, losing a man like Emmanuel Sanders? I mean, I really would say that that's obviously, not a very intelligent question, but at the same time, we're talking about a Broncos offense who really is sputtering anyway with, Emmanuel Sanders on their team.
In the immediate short-term view, it's an awful move, because you just shipped off probably your second best receiver, who, and including this season, he's been very underutilized. He should have been seeing the ball more. Courtland Sutton ended up stepping up, and he's really taken on that number one wide receiver position. But that Sanders was that strong number 2 who could stretch the field, who was their version of Cheetah, who, I mean, let's be real, he was going to be our Tyreek Hill before he screwed us and went and signed with Denver. And I think everybody in Kingdom knows what happened there. But, I mean, in the long view, it worked out better for us because we ended up getting Cheetah.
Right.
But I think in the long term, it was a great move for Denver, being honest and open-minded here, because they get a 3rd and a 4th round pick out of the deal. And they're going to get younger because, I mean, Sanders is, 32, 33, and you're going to get younger at those positions with those picks. And let's be real, they need a lot of help on their roster. And so to be able to trade him and a 5th round pick and turn that 5th pick into a 3rd and a 4th, that's a pretty good deal on their end. And on the flip side for the Niners, that's a tremendous deal because you now have another speedy wide receiver to pair up with Garoppolo. That's a great move that I think is going to help propel them into the postseason even further.
Yes, and I'm sure Emmanuel Sanders is happy to get out of Denver and get on a team that is a competitor. And I'm really happy to have him out of the AFC West. He was absolutely underutilized. And in the same respect, regardless if the Broncos got the 3rd and 4th round pick, which, yes, that's great for their future, but the man at the helm doesn't know what he's doing with those picks. And that's the problem. So the way I feel with the Broncos right now, as long as John Elway is at the helm and trying to rehab and put together his rendition of a football team and save what's left of what was given to him, I'm looking at a team here that's in shambles and is not going to get it together for quite some time.
Yeah, and it's really going to be a matter of, can they develop the quarterback that they drafted this year? I was actually talking to my dad about this game or about this team and this issue earlier this week, and everybody is so focused on Flacco and why he's doing so poorly in Denver and blah 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 blah. He's been doing bad for a while. Yes. And the only reason why the Broncos brought him in is because they knew they were going to draft a quarterback, and they needed to develop him, and they needed an experienced vet to sit in front of him so that guy would be able to sit back and learn how to play in the NFL system. And that's what's happening right now. And so the rest of the team looks awful because they're going to go as Flacco goes, and Flacco is awful.
Yes. And he's proven it time and time again this season. And so, okay, we're gonna move on to a team here that is really doing some things and has continued to do things as long as Tom Brady's been under center. The New England Patriots acquire Mohamed Sanu from the Falcons, which in my mind is a big deal. And leading to that, was Josh Gordon being placed on the injured reserve. But I feel like Mohamed Sanu can really take the top off, and I feel like is probably one of the best assets to the Patriots in the last few seasons.
What really surprised me about this trade wasn't that they traded for Sanu, but it was what they gave up for him. They gave up a 2nd-round pick. You look back at when they traded for Randy Moss, who was a future Hall of Famer. Mm-hmm. They gave up a 5th-round pick for him. And so, looking at those comparisons, what the heck were the Raiders thinking back then, giving up Randy Moss for a 5th-round pick?
Yeah, and I'll say Mohamed Sanu is no Randy Moss, but that is the element of how some organizations are ran. I mean, we don't know what was going on behind the scenes, and we know how, was Al Davis was still at the helm when Randy Moss played on the Raiders, correct?
Yes, he was.
Okay, and Al Davis, we know this directly in Chiefs Kingdom with Marcus Allen, had no problem dishing anybody off for anything if he didn't want them in the organization.
Yeah, he was a very temperamental owner.
Absolutely. And so, you can only tame Randy Moss for so long, and, they might have, different views on things, and boom, 5th round pick to the Patriots, and then history happened. So the Mohamed Sanu scenario brings me to our next topic, because let's be honest, that's a huge threat, deep threat for Tom Brady. And so the Patrick Peterson talks have started to resurface, and again, the Kansas City Chiefs are in the number one spot to pick him up or trade for him, or whatever the case may be. And I hate to regurgitate information over and over and over again, but this is a topic that has been big in Chiefs Kingdom this season, and it's been beat to death and then brought back and beat to death again. But I guess we'll go ahead and talk about it one more time, Chris, because our window is closing very quickly with 6 days left before the trade deadline. So what do you think on Patrick Peterson one more time?
I still think that that's not a position of concern for us. Okay. Could we get better there? Absolutely. I mean, we could. Let's be realistic. We could get better across the board on our roster. But having to give up what we would have to in order to get him, it's not worth it. And we touched on this earlier with the Jalen Ramsey trade. If we trade away another first-round pick, that's 3 years, potentially 4 if we trade away 2. 3 years, 4 years of no first-round picks for the Chiefs, and we need to get those first-round picks.
Right.
And I would much rather start looking at these teams who are sellers this year, teams that are 1-6, 2-5, 0-7, and see if there are players on those squads that we could potentially steal away for a deal. A 5th round, 6th round pick, maybe get a guy who's on the bench, trade a 7th round pick for him. The Steelers have a linebacker who really impressed me in the offseason that I would love to trade for. He was an undrafted free agent, and he was tearing it up in the offseason. I would love to bring that kid in.
And who is that?
You know what? Give me 1 second. Let me check their roster. The name escapes me at the moment.
No, you're fine. I kind of want to take off on something anyway. And me and you had touched base on this in previous podcasts about. I feel like it's not a bad thing to use your leverage as a GM and I wouldn't necessarily say attack another franchise, and that's a wrong choice of words, but take advantage of a franchise that's in shambles and needs to make a desperate move, and you could probably catch them in a vulnerable spot to where they will send a player to you, undervalue of what they're really worth. And I'd really love the Chiefs to possibly attack an angle like that and go after, a player that Chiefs Kingdom might not even thought existed, on a trading block or anything like that. I would love for them to catch us off guard with something, and use this $20 million left in cap in a smart, senseful manner, moving forward for our franchise. And where does that lie? I mean, look, there are some, positions of interest in, with linebacker and tight end, and, we'll throw cornerback in there. But I agree with Chris wholeheartedly here. I say we sit on our hands with Patrick Peterson and let that offer walk by, and let him be somebody else's money pit. So, Chris, did you pull up that name that you were trying to think of?
No, he's not showing up on their roster at the moment.
That's all right. That's all right. Let's move.
I had it in my old notes, and I got rid of them after we played them in the preseason.
That's all right. We'll move on to, some other stuff here. let's talk about these key positions the Chiefs should look for. And, I kind of already mentioned them with the linebacker, tight end, and cornerback. Chris, do you have anything in mind? Because this is one of those things. This is really the first season that I've seen where it's just all the talent is picked to death. There's really not a whole lot on the trade block that's worth Kansas City going after. There's a couple superstar players, and then there's a bunch of extremely, I don't want to say underrated talent, but there's a lot of low talent left in the trade pool.
Yeah, and I would much rather we go after a mid-tier talent as opposed to a top-tier talent, because if we go after a superstar, we have to pay them. And we have to keep in mind that we have several big contracts coming up that are going to need to get paid and fulfilled.
Yes.
And we need to have as much money on the table as possible. I would much rather we trade a 4th, 5th round pick or even do a player swap and bring in a mid-tier talent, a rising star, so to speak, talent that is locked away on the depth chart because there's a superstar ahead of them. Bring those guys in, give them an opportunity to start here and see what they could do. I know you mentioned it, but linebacker is the only position that I feel is screaming for some more consistency. Hitchens and Ragland in the game against Denver really surprised me and turned the corner, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
I want to see it to be more sustained and consistent throughout the rest of the season. But the other linebacker position, it's been very hit and miss with Damian Wilson and the other name's going to escape me right now. I really want to see either consistency there, and somebody needs to step up and just ball out, or we need to make a trade and bring in somebody who will do that.
And I feel like, this is tough because with the trade line approaching, you want to give the defense, a couple weeks to see what they're going to continue to do because they look so great. They looked great last week, and we hope to continue on. But the good thing is we play a formidable opponent. Not that anybody that we haven't played already, hasn't come with a squad, but this is the Packers. This is Aaron Rodgers-led Packers. This is going to be a huge test to really let our team know where we stand, and will be a great opportunity to also, I don't want this. I hate to put it like this, but it will exploit our weaknesses and give us a direction to, hey, what exactly do we need moving forward? Because every year the Packers are a Super Bowl contender. And I don't mind basing, our future of, the rest of our season based upon a game that we play against a Super Bowl contender. Still there?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sorry. I was reading something real quick. Yeah, and in order to be that consistent and Super Bowl contender, we need to load up on talent. Young talent, budding talent, and we have to be willing to cut bait when a guy is not performing up to the level that we expect. We did that this offseason when we were making cuts with McKenzie, for instance, and more than likely we're probably going to end up making that move here with Cam Irving here, probably here pretty soon. If not in this next offseason. And we need to be willing to look at these other teams and, take advantage of these teams that need the draft picks because they're doing so awful. And, we could probably get better talent from them for cheaper because they're doing so poorly and they're desperate to get those picks. Whereas if we were to be trying to trade with a team that thinks that they're a contender, they're going to demand more in compensation, and because the way that they're going to view it is we're losing a key piece to our team that should be able to get into the playoffs, should contend for the Super Bowl. Well, and so in order for us to give up on that, we need proper compensation. We need 2, 3, 4 high picks, whatever.
I think the great thing about the situation with the Kansas City Chiefs right now is there's not a player in the league who doesn't want to come play with a Andy Reid-led, Patrick Mahomes-led team. That's a great asset. I mean, we have a magnet going on, in the football community. Everybody wants to come play in Kansas City, and it's at a point where, if you want to come win a Super Bowl, come take a team-friendly deal, and we're more than happy to have you on the Kansas City Chiefs. And we need to only look at those players moving forward, look at quality of depth. That's one thing that I feel like our scouts and Chiefs Kingdom have done a great job of, is finding, the quality and the depth of the draft. And, even these trades, I mean, we're looking real good, and we just need to continue to keep digging, keep chopping wood, and looking for the next man up. And I feel like that's just our motto here in Kansas City: next man up.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have the pieces. We just need to figure out how to utilize them correctly, to the point where it doesn't give away what we're going to be doing on our defense or even on our offense. And I think that with our defense, we've really held back in the first half of the season. We rushed or blitzed more against the Denver than we had all season long. And I think with Spags finally getting to that comfortability level and kind of letting up on the reins a bit, we really got to see what this defense is capable of doing, that you and I have been talking about all preseason long.
Yes.
And I know that it hurt and was difficult to watch the first half of the season, but you had to have faith that it's there. And also keep in mind, we are playing extremely good teams.
Yes.
And especially when you compare our schedule to the Patriots.
Our schedule is tough. I mean, when it all plays out in the end, the Chiefs' schedule might be one of the hardest schedules that any team has played in the last decade. I mean, it's that tough of a schedule. There's teams on here we'd expect to be as good as they were, like the Colts, the Lions. Even obviously we assume the Texans would be great, but not good enough to beat the Chiefs. I mean, there's some teams on our schedule that'll really surprise you.
Yeah, and you look at the Patriots schedule, and let's take their division games out, because I mean you can't really do much about those guys. But everybody else that they're playing, there's really only 2 teams on their entire schedule that are really going to give them a run for their money. And then you have a third team that might be able to give them a run for their money.
And one of them happens to be the Chiefs.
Well, yeah, that's the one that's going to definitely give them a run for their money. And that game is going... I'm going to step out and say right now that I am guaranteeing that the Patriots do not go undefeated.
Yes, and we have some revenge against the Patriots, and I cannot wait for that game. It is a Sunday afternoon game, but I'm almost willing to bet that's going to be flexed to Sunday night. So this Sunday might not be the last Sunday night the Chiefs see this season. Yeah,
we have scheduled 2. We actually have the Bears in the second to last week of the season, but I think that New England game definitely gets flexed.
I mean, it's too big of a showcase, especially if Mahomes doesn't play against the Packers here Sunday evening, which he better not. He better not. He should stand on sideline with a Kingdom Radio hoodie on. That's what I'd like to see. Pat, can we get that? Can we get you on the sideline with the Kingdom Radio hoodie? It's that time of year, folks. And hey, we're gonna do a little promotion here. Get your Kingdom Radio gear, t-shirts and hoodies available at kingdomradio.com. itemorder2019.com. Again, that's itemorder.kingdomradio2019.com. Go check it out and get some Kingdom Radio gear. Chris, I've got to ask you, is there anything else that you want to add to this? And I do want, actually, before I say that, let's get to the injury report, because we still have the injury report to do. And we're gonna start with the Chiefs and who did not practice today, and the list is quite lengthy, unfortunately. But I like the fact that all these players are getting rest. But Frank Clark did not practice today. Obviously, Chris Jones, K-Pass, Darren Lee, Kendall Fuller, and Andrew Wiley all did not practice today. But Eric Fisher, like we said earlier, returns to practice. Huge deal. We really need him back. Let's get into this. Let's get into our injury report a little bit, Chris, because there's some big players on here. None of them are reported out for the game. And what do you think? Well, we do have one out. Fisher won't be playing, will he?
He shouldn't be. Although he's practicing, he's not up to game speed just yet. I think it'll probably be another week, possibly two, if he has a setback next week. Get ready for the Minnesota game. And as Fisher goes, I think that I think that Mahomes needs to go as well. If Fisher's not playing, Mahomes isn't playing.
I completely agree.
That's where I'm at on that deal.
I completely agree. But how do you feel what about Sammy Watkins? Is Sammy Watkins back at practice?
He was a full participant, finally, and much needed. I think that having him and Cheetah, having a full complement of wide receivers and weapons for Matt Moore is going to be huge. And for them to be able to all practice together and get on the same page is going to really, really help going into Sunday's game.
Absolutely, because the number one thing going to this game, I'm sure everybody in Chiefs Kingdom agrees, and we have talked about it all week, is get the ball out of Matt Moore's hands and get into the playmakers and let them do the rest. And so, yes, it'll be nice to have Sammy Watkins. Just stay healthy, Watkins, and dig deep. Even if you have some little lingering issue, just suck it up, and we need you right now. We need you. You can help take the top off of this defense and all defenses. So stay healthy. Frank Clark and the rest of the gang, Jones, K-Pass, Darren Lee, Fuller, Wiley, sit it out, rest it up, get ready for this game, because it's going to be a battle, and we need each and every one of those guys. I'm sure Chris Jones is – how long is Chris Jones out? What's going on with Chris Jones?
He was supposed to be 3 to 5 weeks, so there's a chance that he could be coming back here pretty soon, because we're at the 3-week mark right now. So potentially he should be back by the Tennessee game. And then I would venture to say for sure we'd see him against San Diego just before the bye week.
I'll tell you what, we're going to have a locked and loaded team here in 2 weeks. And the great thing about that is we're going to get all that talent back. They're going to play San Diego, and then they're going to get another, week and a half off to where they can just relax and rest and really heal. We're gonna have it's a great scenario for the Chiefs going down the stretch as long as we're smart with Mahomes.
Yeah, and just to touch on one other thing, I think that, and again, this is kind of going with the schedule. Well, having the bye week so late in the year is going to be tremendously helpful to us and allow us to get healthy going into the back half of the season, where we have to beat up on the Patriots, and we need to bring it to them in a way that they're not going to see it again in the playoffs. We're going to need to beat them completely differently than how we do in the regular season, but we need to set that tone going into the playoffs of, you need to watch out for us because we're coming for you. And then in the playoffs, have something else for them.
Yes, a whole different scheme, something we haven't brought to the table for anybody else. I know Andy Reid's already chomping at the bit, probably has that game plan written up like 36 times already. That's how important this game is to his career, honestly. I mean, let's keep it real. That game this year will be one of the most important games in his career leading up to the playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. I have to agree with that. There's very few games that would actually have as big of an impact and significance in his history.
And so, and it needs to be treated as such. And you're right. The game plan's got to be different both times. The game plan's got to be completely different than any other team has seen all season long. That's how smart Belichick and Brady are. And we have the complement to that dynasty over there, and Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, and we just have to live up to the hype and finally shut these guys down. And I know everybody in Chiefs Kingdom is excited for that. And this is the year. This is the year we can get past these guys. And look, that's a scary thing to think about, and it really raises my hopes for the season. Is all the time off the Chiefs are going to get, and then all of our starters will come back at one time, will be a complete unit. Then we get to go into a bye week and let them rest even more. It's just, this is a great, great scenario for the Kansas City Chiefs, period. That's just what it is.
Yeah. And now to bring it back, because we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, just to bring it back to the Packers' death or injury report. They only had one guy who is out this week, or out at practice today, Davante Adams. He did not practice due to turf toe. He's technically being listed day-to-day. He's getting better. He's probably going to be a game-time decision on Sunday. But the Packers have a huge list of injured players. The majority of them are limited practices or full practice, but there's lots of big names on here, a lot of starters. Aaron Rodgers is on here with a limited practice due to a knee. You've got both of their tight ends, tackle, safety, cornerback. They've got two other wide receivers on here. These guys are banged up, and not to the point where the Chiefs are as far as like having starter after starter after starter out. But these guys are banged up, nicked up, and I mean, if ever there was a chance to pick these guys off and to, I don't want to say necessarily steal a win, but to steal a win, given that we don't have our starting quarterback, this would be the time to do it.
If that injury report holds true, and Davante Adams, that would be a big deal for Kansas City, because that is one player that can take the top off, and you take that element out of Aaron Rodgers' game, I mean, it could be a long day for him. And I'm just going to say it just like, we talked about in the previous podcast and last week, and just go after Rodgers. Just send the dogs. You saw what happened. And I feel like we can do the same to Rodgers if we just come in there with our heads down and get it done. Just get it done, Kansas City.
Yeah, and we just need to keep him pressured and force him to throw scared. When that does happen, and he struggles against the blitz, he can make mistakes, and then those mistakes tend to snowball. If that happens, we win this game as long as we don't beat ourselves.
And that's the thing. Limit the mistakes, limit the penalties, play smart football, control the line, and control the clock, and we could be all right. And look, that's a great thing too. Having Matt Moore in there, we have to manage the clock. We have to manage the game, and that's going to be, the number one focus. And I think it's going to help, us mentally get back into the balanced game plan that we've kind of been lacking. Not last week, but the weeks before. That's going to help balance us out, and that's something that we need. So, Chris, is there anything else you would like to add? We have our pregame show, coming up here on Friday or Saturday before the game. And everybody can also check out our content on kckingdomradio.com. We'll be updating blogs daily. And so we're going to start that rotation. And Chiefs Kingdom, hang in there with us with our kckingdomradio.com, our webpage. It does have a lot of great content, but we're just figuring out all the back end aspects and, how to add content. We're going to get, the listeners involved. We'll have an open thread to the community where you all can, talk Chiefs, give us topics to talk about. We'll definitely be engaging with the community. But with that being said, Chris, do you have anything to add?
Just going to do a little Aaron Rodgers breakdown really quickly.
Perfect.
So for the season, he's been sacked 12 times. But here's the kicker on that. Since opening week against Chicago, he's only been sacked 7 times. Against the Bears, he was sacked 5 times. And knowing the Chicago Bears defense, they were getting after him.
Right.
And they were pressuring him, and his QBR was all the way down to 33.2. And he's only had one other game that was worse than that, which was against Detroit. But he sacked 5 times, only threw for 1 touchdown. And then to the complete opposite of that, this past weekend against Oakland, he was only sacked once, but had 5 touchdowns. He averaged 13.8 yards per passing attempt. He completed 80% of his throws.
Wow.
We can't let him have another game like that because otherwise we're going to be in trouble. If he plays the way that he has all season long with 1 touchdown here, 2 touchdowns there, we'll have a chance.
Okay, so let me ask you this, Chris. How does Kansas City shut down Aaron Rodgers? Because if that's the key element, obviously it's getting to him all day long. But where are we going to get the best pressure? Are we going to get the best pressure up the middle, from his blind side? Is it going to be the linebacking core? Like, what is going to be the main aspect of the Kansas City Chiefs that will shut down Aaron Rodgers and bring this victory home to Kansas City?
Okay, so looking at it schematically, I'm going to play man coverage on the wide receivers. Especially if Devontae Adams is out, I'm man covering all day long.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm trusting my secondary to man up and to shut down these wide receivers. That's the first thing. Second thing, I do like I did it against Denver, and I pressure up the middle. I force Aaron Rodgers to move out of the pocket, which when he was younger, that was his key thing, was he would love to move outside. And he'll still do it. He still likes to do it. He's not as accurate as he once was there. So then pressuring up the middle, that forces him to then run into our bookend defensive ends. Run at Frank Clark.
Right.
Run at Okafor.
Right.
Run at Ogba. Let them get after you. Run at K-Pass. Because he wasn't a participant due to illness. I'm hoping that he'll be healthy by the game time. But run to our big defensive ends and then try to throw over them on top of that.
I will say one thing, this is adding to getting the pressure up the middle. Have you ever noticed that, especially with Aaron Rodgers, he's not willing to take the big hit very much? If he's rushed up the middle, he's a quarterback that will go straight to the ground and not even take the hit. He feels the pressure like that coming. It could be a long afternoon for Aaron Rodgers. We just have to. Here's the thing, is with a quarterback like him, it doesn't matter if we run disguises. It doesn't matter if we have spies. He's going to read that all game long. We're not going to outthink Aaron Rodgers. We have to outplay Aaron Rodgers. And with that being said, we've got to get to him all game long.
Yeah, absolutely. And if we can ride the momentum that the Denver game gave us, we'll be able to do it.
Right. And that's the thing is, I feel like, we're having a good, defensive practice this week because really we haven't heard anything about it. That's been overshadowed by Patrick Mahomes, in the trade deadline coming up. And obviously Patrick Mahomes is the biggest news in sports right now, honestly. But we don't hear anything negative coming out of practice with the defense. And let's keep them silent, keep them humble. Keep working, Kansas City. We've got a huge game here on Sunday, and we could really get out of there with a victory. So, I feel like our keys on the offense. We'll shift gears here. We'll talk about the offense. Control the clock, establish the run game. And then that'll open up play action because that Green Bay is going to be expecting the run, and they're probably going to be expecting those short passes. So we've kind of got to, prepare for that. But we can beat them over the top with the play action. And I think that's something that we should utilize often because that might be our secret weapon for a player like Matt Moore and then having Sammy Watkins and Tyreek Hill on the field. And then if he can't put it over the top, I really hope that Kelsey has a great game. I'm not sure, let me ask you this. D Ford covering Travis Kelsey. Wait. D Ford plays for the Packers, right?
No, D Ford plays
for the 49ers. What's that?
For the 49ers.
Yes, I don't know why I said that. Who are they? They were talking about getting D Ford and Justin Houston. I'm sorry. And they didn't pull the trigger on that, either of them. You're right. I can't believe I said that. Okay, but can their linebacking core cover Travis Kelsey? Can they stop him? Do they have the speed, to keep up? But I really think the play action, that's where we can burn him. Put him under center. Put Matt Moore under center.
Well, and they're going to be playing a 3-4 defense, and they'll probably look to use Zadarius Smith against him to try to shut him down. Blake Martinez kind of is going to be more of like the running back spy. He's going to be playing more against the run game, but he's also a good pass defender as well. So what I would imagine is we're probably going to line Kelsey up and try to take advantage of Preston Smith and Oren Burks on the left side. And if we can get that mismatch, we'll probably be milking that as much as we can and force Green Bay to try to do something else. But then also, they've got a very good backup linebacker that they could potentially bring in Rashawn Gary, who, although he's a rookie, he's had a pretty decent season so far. And he's rather athletic. They could potentially look to see what he could do against Kelsey.
And, they're going to have to do something. And that's my thing is, and this kind of builds off of what we were talking about earlier about how he still has, Matt Moore still has all these weapons around him. And there's still a game plan to a Matt Moore-led Kansas City Chiefs. You can't just go in, playing any Chiefs team and expecting, them not to put up points. In some way, shape, or form, we're going to put up points against this team. And I feel like we're going to come in more prepared than anybody thinks because, look, nobody knows what we're going to get out of Matt Moore, and that might be our greatest weapon against a team like the Packers.
Yeah, they're not going to know what they don't have any tape on Matt Moore with our KC roster, not even in preseason.
And see, that could very well work in our favor.
Because they're going to have to look back to his last tape with the Dolphins, and that's a completely different team, completely different scheme, different offensive coordinator. They don't really know what to look at other than what they saw against Denver. And Matt Moore wasn't what we didn't game plan for Matt Moore And so it's going to be interesting to see what they come out prepared for and then what we actually give them.
Yes, it's going to be a lot different Matt Moore-led team, when the game plan is built around him, other than him being thrown in on a whim and doing a great job. He did a great job. Let's keep that trend going. Let's keep it going. We got the Packers again here on Sunday evening, and it'd be great to come out with a victory. So, Chris, anything else? Because we're getting carried away here on time. Is there anything else you'd like to add to the show?
No, we got to save it for the pregame.
There we go. All right, Kansas City. So we're going to wrap it up here. Again, go to Kingdom Radio, kckingdomradio.com, and check out our content and subscribe to get email updates on our blogs, our podcasts, and all the extra content that we have. So with that being said, Kansas City, you have a great week. End your work week strong. Have faith that Kansas City can pull this game out Sunday evening because, like we said, and I'll say over and over again, Patrick Mahomes, sit this one out, bud. Heal that knee and that ankle, and let's get rolling here in a couple weeks. So, Kansas City, you have a great evening.
Thank you for tuning in to Kingdom Radio, your go-to podcast for everything Kansas City Chiefs.